Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. I really appreciate your support. Before I get started, I just want to ask you guys a question. I would love to get to know you guys, and I would love it if you would leave a comment below and tell me a little bit about yourself. Let me know if you are a Caribbean medical student or if you go to medical school somewhere else in the world, or even if you're just a medical student in the US or Canada. I would really just love to get to know my subscribers a little bit better, and have a conversation with you down below in the comments. And one more thing that I want to add before I jump into the video is that I've been active on Instagram a lot more lately than I used to be. I've been posting a lot to my Instagram stories whenever I'm on call overnight in the hospital or when I have my 12-hour shifts. Right now I'm an OB/GYN, as you guys know, and so if you want to see more content related to what I'm actually doing on the day-to-day, feel free to jump over there at Medimentary. And actually tonight I did my first Instagram live where I just answered questions that people were sending to me, and I had a good conversation with about 100 of you guys, which was really fun. So if you're ever interested in seeing more content, just jump over there. And now we'll get into the actual content of this video. So if you've seen the title, you'll know that we are talking about a question that I get asked a fair amount, which is, can I make it through medical school without a thorough background or any background in the sciences? And the short answer to that is yes. However, if you're watching this video, you're likely going to want to stick around for the long answer, and I will jump into that now. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Casey. Hello. I am a third-year medical student, and I am a Canadian, and I am attending a Caribbean medical school, which means that the first 2 years of medical school were in the Caribbean for me, and the last 2 years, or the years that I'm enrolled in now, are taking place in Chicago, Illinois, United States. And I also have the opportunity to do electives all over America if I so choose. Now, a lot of you will have seen the video that I posted a couple of months ago telling you about my non-traditional med school story. If you haven't, I talk about my background, which is not in the sciences, and I will link that above right now so you can go check that out. You can pause if you want to watch it and then come back here, but I will quickly summarize if you don't feel like doing that. But essentially, my background is actually in communication studies and journalism. That was what I was planning on being for the majority of my young adult life, and what I was planning on being for the first couple of years of college until I decided to pursue a career in medicine. So at the time that I decided that I was going to go into medicine, I really had no background in science. The last science course that I had taken at the point that I thought about applying for med school, which was the third year of university, was my grade 12 biology class. Like grade 12 as in high school, okay? So that's where I was coming from. And so at that time, I genuinely thought that if you wanted to apply to medical school, you actually had to have an undergraduate degree in the sciences or engineering or something along that vein, which is entirely untrue. In fact, it's possible to actually have a major in whatever you like, but just to take the prerequisites required for most med school applications. Now, fast forward a little bit, when I had done some research about the whole international medical school thing, I realized that I could apply for medical school with just taking a couple of their recommended prereq courses. So I actually ended up only taking an anatomy physiology combined course and a neuroscience course. So when I was accepted into medical school, I was vastly underprepared for the medical curriculum because I had a very little science background. However, contrary to popular belief, this actually was not a huge disadvantage for me, and I will tell you why. Now, for most American and Canadian medical schools, there are 4 main prerequisite courses required in order to apply for medical school. You will have had to take have taken some form of biology course, like a molecular or cell biology course, some form of chemistry, usually organic chemistry or biochemistry. You will have had to take physics and also math. Okay, 4 courses that I did not take. And for a lot of Caribbean schools, like the top 4 Caribbean schools, these courses are still required, okay? But at a lot of other international schools, the prerequisites are a lot slimmer than that, and they essentially just recommend you to take a couple science courses, but really all they care about is that your GPA is decent and you have a good application overall, and you have some other things to compensate, like research or work experience in a lab or some other evidence to indicate to them that you would succeed in medical school, and that was the case for me. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, what was my experience like in medical school, going from something so basic and artsy like communications to having, 8 hours of class every day and 6 exams at the end of every month without any background in science. How on earth did I do that? And I will tell you, it was a huge learning curve. It was very stressful to start out with. I started medical school in January of 2015, and man, that first semester was really tough. Some of my courses were anatomy, histology, embryology. We had a case review or case-based studies course, and oh gosh, I don't even remember what else, but the main things were anatomy, histology, and embryology, okay? And I had never had to study the way that I had to study in medical school before. And that was really difficult for me, going from the poor study habits that I had before medical school to knowing that I wanted to be a doctor, therefore I needed to do well on my exams every month. Therefore, this meant that I had to throw away all the poor study habits that I had before that essentially revolved around cramming a couple days before the exam. And it was also stressful because I had no history of succeeding in a series of scientific courses that I could look back on and remind myself that I had done. Sure, I had done my anatomy physiology course, I got an A. I had done my neuroscience course, I got an A. But those were the only 2 courses I took over a summer that I was studying for them for. So it's not like I was taking 6 science courses at once. I took those 3 courses, I did really well, but I didn't have anything else on my plate. So for this reason, I doubted myself constantly for probably the first 3 semesters of medical school. It took me a very, very long time to believe that I would actually be able to do it and that I was actually going to be able to pass and graduate through even the first 2 years of med school. And on top of that, I also had to play major catch up in that first semester or 2. And I only say the first semester or 2 because the courses that were really difficult for me were the things that a lot of people had already covered in their backgrounds in biology or whatever science degrees that they had, namely biochem, physiology, and histology. Those 3 courses were difficult for me because I was still unfamiliar with the concepts of ATP and GTP and cellular physiology and biology, and I didn't even remember what all the organelles were in the cell, okay? Like I had a long way to go. So I was trying to play catch up, trying to learn all those things, but then on top of that, also trying to learn and memorize all the content that I was seeing every single day, 8 hours a day. It was just a lot. And I'm sure you're wondering, when does this get any easier and when is the good part coming? Well, okay, those first 2 semesters were pretty difficult, not gonna lie. I had a lot of self-doubt and it was difficult playing catch up. However, after those 2 semesters, I was actually able to improve significantly. I began to understand what these overarching concepts were and the basic physiology of the body and how things work and kind of the homeostasis of tissues and cells and all this stuff, so that when it came to other courses like pathology and microbiology, I kind of had gotten the hang of things. And the reason that I wanted to clarify those 3 courses that were difficult is because it was just those 3 courses. Those 3 courses were very difficult for me, and it made the other courses difficult because I was taking longer to absorb and understand the information. But the rest of the courses that I went through in medical school did not require me to understand any form of organic chemistry, physics, or math. Okay, so for anyone who's worried about going into medical school without a background in science, you don't have to worry because 80% of what you're learning in medicine is not at all related to what you have to know for the MCAT. And that's been my experience. But I did want to be honest with you and say that those first 2 semesters were very difficult, and I would not recommend going into medical school with as little science background as I did. However, it is definitely doable because I'm here, I've taken step 1, and I've made it into my 3rd year of medicine. Now, fast forward to the end of my 4th semester of medical school, so the end of 2nd year, I had made it through, I had finally developed the confidence in myself, and I was ready to tackle step 1. Now, if you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, you will know that it took me just over 1 full year to study for step 1. Now, part of me wants to blame this on the fact that I didn't go into medical school with a lot of science information in my brain. And part of me wants to blame the fact that I had to play catch up for a long time in order to finally integrate everything that I had learned over those 16 months into my brain well enough in order to be able to pass. And I'm sure that this did contribute to my long step 1 study period. However, when I look at it, a good chunk of my class and a good chunk of the Caribbean medical students that I have met up to this time took the same amount of time as I did to study for step 1 or longer. In fact, there are still people in my class who are studying for step 1 who had backgrounds in biology, who came from really great universities, who studied kinesiology, who studied subjects and had a lot of research in the field, who still had a really hard time or still are having a really hard time passing the comprehensive exam so that they can take step 1. Now, what am I getting at with the point of this video? The point of this video is to answer that question and say that yes, you definitely can make it through medical school without a strong background in science. But what I want you to know is that it is not going to be easy. Yes, you can make it through, but I would highly, highly recommend taking some of those prerequisite courses that are required to get into any US or Canadian medical school, namely biology. Like a molecular biology course or a cell biology course would have probably saved me a lot of time being able to understand the physiology of how energy production happens in the body. And also a physiology course probably would have been really helpful, and even maybe a biochem course. Do I think that you need to go and take a physics course and a math course? Hell no, okay? I did not feel disadvantaged in any way for not taking those courses. However, if you want to take them, that's great. I'm sure that you would benefit from having that information. Being more educated is only going to make you a better doctor. But what I'm saying is that if you haven't had the chance to take all those courses and you really feel like you want to move forward with your medical career or your medical training, it's not going to be the end of the world if you haven't taken every single one of those prerequisites that are required to get into a US or Canadian medical school. And that was short and sweet, but I hope that got right to the point and addressed the question that I've been asked a couple of times, and I hope that you can see that I'm living proof that you can make it through medical school without having an entire undergraduate degree in biology or biochem or physics. However, having an undergraduate degree in any of those areas is only going to make you a better doctor. So that brings me to the end of this video. I hope that was useful for you. I really just wanted to share my experience with you guys because I know I actually haven't talked much about whether or not I felt disadvantaged coming from an arts background as opposed to a science background. Now, I could go on and on about the ways that I feel like coming from a background in the arts, specifically communications, was actually an advantage for me, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. Let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd be interested in me talking about. But for now, I will leave it here and I will see you guys in my next video. Give this one a like if you actually liked it, and I will see you later. Bye!